Hello, Jackrudi there. Today we will be watching social horror Catopolis. Please write commentaries about this animation and we will discuss it. So, 3.5 million views on this cartoon, audience love and good animation work. Maybe someone in the social horror movie will see a piece of his life or live this hard life with the hero of the cartoon, but in any case, enjoy it. Penny lies on the bed and stares at the ceiling. Suddenly, from the window next door, a guy looks out with a message on a sign saying, "Do you want to go look at a corpse?" The choice between looking at the ceiling and looking at the corpse isn't that long. And so they are on the way to the forbidden territory where they find the dead cat body. And then they sit down next to the body and smoke cigarettes. When Penny returns home, he says hello to his father and goes to his room, wondering if he's going to die with the fortune teller's bell.
Am I gonna die?
This is how the everybody's life of our hero goes. Not a bit of joy, only despair, apathy and frustration. Next thing you know, Penny is working as a cashier at the store, and just as he's there, he gets into a scuffle with his colleague, for which he gets kicked out of his job. And as much as he liked to, it's time to go home and get beaten by his father. Penny is waiting for his bus, and a strange man in a suit shows up next to him. He hands our hero a business card and says, "I have seen Penny in action." So he waits for him unless, of course, he wants to make a big money. What follows is a very serious and always dense conversation with his father. He mentally smothers Penny, but our boy tries to get out of it and insinuates to his father the presence of another job. Like it's not a big deal that he got fired, he still got somewhere to make money. He says it's okay and there's nothing to worry about. Well, and in a way Penny wasn't lying, even though he hasn't worked here yet, but he was invited, and that's a step towards, to getting the cash as his first paycheck. It all looks very mysterious to say at least. Penny is passed from hand to hand, and then finally he's thrown into a closed room with only a window in the wall. From there, the warden looks out and assesses the strength of the candidates. Yeah, you got it right. It's a fight without rules. He signs the contract and returns home, where he happily shows his daddy his hard-earned money. And then he's sent to the fights. He's treated, studied, and then he goes back to the fights. And then he's treated and studied again, but he's even shown on TV. Note that Penny looks happy though, and that is what he's dreaming about. Sitting on the sidelines, talking to his friend. His friend suddenly confesses that he's about to leave for the army. His parents thought he was stupid, so the army should correct him and put him on the path of the truth and discipline him. Behind him, a tank arrives, and he goes off to war. Penny escapes this fate. He's making good money now. Even though he gets maimed every day, his father is satisfied that his son is doing at least some good. Once again, sitting in the doctor's office, while everyone else is gone, Penny decides to look into the room where the lights is seen in. He finds his clothes there. He is immediately asked to stay out of the way. This scares him very much. He is also frightened by a letter from a friend sharing the news that he has killed someone for the first time, and now he has go to fight again. At some point the boy's psyche fails, but it goes nowhere. He wakes up again, in his bunk all crippled. There's a war on TV, but he doesn't know what's on his mind. Life seems to go by inertia through pain, although the inertia is easily interrupted by simply throwing Penny out of the film. It turns out that no one needs him, no one loves him. He doesn't care about anything, and even an armed robbery in front of him doesn't scare him. The whole world is just ruined for him. The car that hit him only crippled the boy, so he gets up and walks on through the city dimlessly and alone, until he meets a masked bandit and a soldier chasing him. The soldier tries to find out if Penny has seen a guy in a mask. Our hero says no, and it turns out that the guy in the mask is Davy, Penny's friend and neighbor.
Is that you?
They're not having a heart-to-heart talk. This time Penny is just asking for help. And so After a while, they climbed into the company building. Davy picks the lock and gives Penny his gun. The rest of what Penny is up to is just in his hands. He plots to destroy his clones, but he fails to do so. Almost on the verge of being shot, he changes his mind and almost escapes, but then he decides to save himself's clones. They run away, hide, and then just go their separate ways. Penny comes home, sits with his father on the couch, and they watch TV together. The end. Guys, and you know what's interesting? All the emotions that Penny holds within, they're all stored in the animation itself. I mean for me, the animation is both scary and at the same time sad and depressing at the same time. Penny in this animation is scared and sad and doesn't understand what to do. As I said before at the beginning, it's more of a social horror, and it speaks to both personal problems as well as the problems of the society in the entirety. I just watched in the other day La La Land, and that word, the synonym of employees, is just glimpsed.
Oh,
Thanks.
I can do it a different way.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Here, however, the problem is given special attention. Corporations, producers, employers most often don't care about the mental health of their employees. For many of them, employees are just expendable that can be discarded at any time if they make a mistake. Penny is easily replaced by others, so the doctors here analyzed everything he did, taught it to the clones, and the clones probably don't even need to be paid. And then, why do they ever need our main character now? They throw him out, and it makes all the suffering that came before almost meaningless. The same goes for his friend, by the way. He is the same social outcast. His parents don't know what to do with him anymore, and it's unlikely they ever cared about him. After all, their best solution is to send him off to war. And that's another problem that raised, the theme of fathers and children. Penny's father literally doesn't care that his kid comes back beaten up. The main thing is that he works, which means he doesn't have to blush to his colleagues, to his friends, to his relatives. The son is not an outcast or a loser, and that's already good. What's in his heart is not that important. What's in his heart? It's not that important. This is very cool visually, by the way, because the room is small, but look how big the table is, huge. I mean, the whole perspective in the animation is chosen by the author to show up the distance between the father and the son. Physically, they are close, but emotionally, they are very, very far away. However, the father's authority is very important, so Penny sacrifices his body and mind for approval, but the system in turn maintains a cycle of violence. In general, when I have already watched the animation, I noticed how the characters are portrayed here. They are all kind of outfit, empty. There is no emotion in them. As we discussed before, employers most often don't care about their employees. Parents don't give a shit about the children, but society as a whole doesn't care about violence. The main issue raised is how insensitive you and I becoming over time. I certainly don't know if this cartoon was drawn a long time ago, but it came out after February 2022 and probably just hit the spot, or maybe it was inspired by the events that are happening in the world right now. Look at the characters in the cartoon who are constantly switching the news and look at yourself. Many of us have already dulled our emotions from constantly scrolling through the news. That is, our brains have adapted and it's not so scary to watch all the horror that is going on around us. The same goes for Penny's father and the other characters scrolling through the news for their brutality to become the norm for them. That is, to lower the shock point even more. Still, a character with the emotion is here, and it is Penny. As the story progresses, we see how he tries to hurt others less, how he becomes disgusted with himself, so much so that he can no longer look at himself, or the package on his head shows that Penny is just trying to hide the real himself from the people around him. The sad thing here, despite Penny's sensitivity to everything around him, he sits down with his father on the couch at the end and starts watching TV, watching his father rewatch another assassination attempt, which means that in the end, despite all attempts, the system wins. Eventually, he will become that member of society. Yeah, Pan is shocked when he sees a dead body, but it's probably because of his age. We grow up, we become a little less emotional, less dreamy, and less enthusiastic. That's what the world tells us, and it's a sad moral that fits out real world perfectly. This cartoon is the best I have seen for a moral point of view in years. I hope you liked it too. Thank you for the watching and see you later. Bye everyone.